From Stockholm, Sweden, I'm presenting myself, Peter Keilinger, your host, featuring guests from around the world in interesting conversations and stories. I admire the bass baritone Carsten Wittmoser for changing his repertoire and his philosophy for living a good life in combination with a great singing career with roles all over the world. How did he manage to do that? Hi Carsten, how are you? How is it in Mexico actually? I mean, you're born in Germany and then you suddenly decided to move to Mexico because you found love.
Exactly. And I have to say, even Gabi always reminds me to that when we started off the first meetings and stuff, and we were talking, and that I cannot remember, but I said that I cannot imagine to live somewhere else than Germany. Go figure. But the truth is, my dear Peter, I just didn't have an idea how it could be to live in another country and so far away. So a little bit later, I think after a year, it was the first time that Gabi took me to Mexico. And it was precisely March 2000. And I got here and it hit me. Let's start with the cliche, the climate. It was so beautiful in March. And in March, as you know, well, right now it's a crazy week. We suddenly had 20 degrees in Germany, but that's not normal. February is winter, right? And so I got here and I was like, oh my God, I can swim outside. What's happening? And after that, and getting to know her family, they are all very, very lovely people. And the food and all that, I thought like, how can I do it too? Sometime in the future in my life, live in Mexico. I loved it. The people are so open, so welcoming, so warm. From the very, very first second I touched ground here in Mexico, I fell in love with the country too, after I fell in love with Gabi.
You had a great career as a bass singer, and then suddenly I saw on internet that you sang a role, a Helden baritone role, and I was really impressed, because I was thinking, how could Carsten leave a great career as a bass singer for doing something else? But I know you like to compete. You have a competition gene inside.
Well, so you're just talking about that because you saw that when I was playing badminton back in Stuttgart, right?
Yes.
So I want to do sports, and I come from sports. All my life I did sports, so probably it comes from that. And yeah, if you want, I can talk a little bit about that. I'm German, as you very well mentioned, and I come up. My upbringing was very conservative. So all these bass roles fit into that. No, let's say if you talk about Sarastro, no, you have this very serious expression, and that was just like a thing that I knew how to do. And as far as the voice for it was concerned, it's a little bit like you. You also have a very, very wide range, no, and so let's say my timbre was never a basso profundo, but it was like a dark timbre, and so there was no problem or question that I could sing all this repertoire. So these two came together, and I remember my very first teacher. He was always telling me, if you sing this repertoire, you are not going to hurt your voice. So keep on doing that, and then you see what happens afterwards, because I sort of always had a good top. And then with all these moving around, with moving to Mexico, with having a relationship with a Latina that I never had before, a lot of things moved, and I found that I'm not so conservative. that I don't know from where it comes, but I always had a little Latina gene in me, right? I don't know where it comes from, but so I was, and the first time, so the first times I was thinking about it, I was like, no, you stick with your bass repertoire. This is fine, and it's the secure thing. And well, you sing in big houses, so there's nothing to complain actually. And it was with Gabi that we sang together in Stuttgart. I got the chance to sing. We were young singers there, you remember, so it was not easy to get to the big roles, but they gave me, I think, 2 or 3 performances of Basilio in Il Barbiere. And Gabi was singing too. She was singing the Berta. No? And so because I always felt, you know, the aria too, the La Calunnia, I always felt very weird with the last tone to just sing a D. I couldn't do a lot with it because it was not a top note for me, right? So I heard a version where even the basses go up to a G. So even in Stuttgart, if you allow me to say that, I had the balls to try to sing a G. And Gabi, after the performance, came to, thank God I didn't keeks or something, it really went well. So Gabi came up to me and said, Carsten, what repertoire are you singing? And I was like, well, I'm a bass, I'm singing Sarastro and all these things. And she said, well, that's interesting, but you really have a good top. You should think about using that too, right? And I was pushing it away. And then years later, when we moved to Mexico and everything, and my time in Hamburg was also over, I found out, and I say that with the biggest respect, I found out, I started singing the monologue of Hollander, no, just practicing for myself. And with the due respect, I say it felt easy. And I was like, well, that's a thing. If that feels easy, what's going on? And of course, to sing the whole Hollander, that's really a big challenge, no question about that. But it touched not only, could I present my high notes much better, and it touched something in myself that I thought, no, that's your repertoire. You are behind that. That's, you feel it, you have to, no, and not like, oh, it was like, these high notes at the end where he's so angry and everything. That's when I really went 100%, and I felt so good with it, so that I started adding more and more of that repertoire, and always checking if it is not too much, but I was happy.
Great to hear. I understand. I understand completely, because it's more of you involved in the artistic performance, when you have to fight a little bit for the high notes, even if you know you have them. But it should be something there that it's interesting. It should, if you're able to do it without any effort, then it's, I shouldn't say boring, but it doesn't have the quality of I mean, the composers wrote the arias in a special way, so it should be a little bit difficult to do it.
I'm pretty sure that as a serious bass, I probably would have never, well, you don't know, but I probably would have never sung at the Met. And at Skurvenal, no, I did. So I think this was a big jump. And funny enough, this is not technical from singer to singer. When I started moving up, my low notes got better. Yeah. So just because you know what I'm talking about. So the whole voice was more connected.
Yeah.
And suddenly, when I didn't need them anymore, the low notes got better. So it was good for my voice, because I was not using part of my voice, which is part of my voice. And so I think my singing improved.
Yeah. But I must, let's see if I can. Do you hear?
It was huge.
very good, Carsten. And you left that for something new, and I think that's really a remarkable thing to do, and I really appreciate that you did that.
You know what? I'm sorry. I just have another idea. Talking about these repertoire and stuff, there are still a couple of bass roles that, without any hesitation, I would sing tomorrow. I did in 2018, for example, in a festival. I sang the Landgraf in Tannhäuser, which is from the repertoire. It's bass repertoire. But what can I tell you, Peter? It feels so good in my voice. So I'm really, at this time, at this point of my career, I'm really not thinking about the famous Fach anymore. I'm thinking about a role that suits me or a role that doesn't. And there are a couple of baritone roles, bass baritone roles that don't suit me, and I'm not singing them. And there are a couple of bass roles, it's the same, and vice versa. There are a couple of bass roles like the Landgraf, like the Basilio, or the Rocco. I can sing Rocco and Pizarro, and nobody would complain like, "Ah, what is that? That's a baritone." No. So I really try to look more and more for roles that suit my voice, and I'm not thinking so much in like, oh, that's a serious bass role, or that's a high baritone role. Whatever suits, it does.
Yeah. So your teachers in Germany back then, let's say 20 years ago, who did you study for?
I studied with a teacher, a very, very good teacher. Mind you that I was studying economics. I was not studying at a university or singing, nothing. Yes, I was studying at a university, but economics. So I found a private teacher. His name was Enricus Rotering. He was a tenor, and he sang a long time in Essen, where I was born. And his son has a pretty impressive career, had a pretty impressive career. So I was taking my lessons every Saturday at 12. I will never forget that, for years. And he always, because I didn't have any clue about the opera world, he took me under his wings, and it was like, okay, at a certain point, he presented me, and he always played the safe card, like with his son, actually, who had a major career as a bass in bass repertoire, but was actually always a bass baritone. No? And then later in his career, he moved up too. He sang Wotan, and he sang higher things. And so he was always like, you know what? We do it like that. With Sarastro, you cannot really hurt yourself. If you start singing Holländer at the age of 21, that's a little bit more dangerous. No? So he gave me lessons, at least I would say 6-7 years. And then I auditioned for Stuttgart, and they gave me small roles there. And that was definitely my first very important teacher. And then the whole process of moving up, I did actually with the Gabriela Herrera, my wife. Mm-hmm. You know? Yeah. And I remember, imagine the first role that was offered to me as a bass player. I had an audition at the Komische Oper Berlin as a bass baritone, right? It was the first time that I was not like, I don't even remember what, I think I sang Holländer. And they were like, okay, thank you very much, we liked it. And they came over with an offer for German. Yeah. I was singing 6 months before that, I was singing Sarastro in Hamburg. Okay. And I went home and I said, Gabi, they offered me German. I said, German? You said, I cannot sing German. And she said, why don't we have a look? What can I say? I think German, in general, lays too high for me. But I sang 3 productions. And as you know, the audience loves loud high notes. And that I could deliver with German, you know. But now I would not sing it again, because it just lays the whole time. The famous tessitura is a little bit too high, no? And you larynx go up and up and up, and it can be a lot of...
Yeah. And the nature of the role is also, you don't get the same support as, let's say, Pizarro or something, where you have the emotional backup.
Exactly. And what I saw with you, that my biggest respect, that you sang Rigoletto. Of course, in all these transition, I was also thinking like, well, perhaps you can also sing Rigoletto, perhaps you can. To make a long story short, I think from the Verdi baritones, I should sing, and I did, Amonasro. Amonasro lays a little bit lower, needs a couple of top notes, and it's nicer to have it with a darker voice. And a lot of baritones, like a fantastic Simon Estes or something, they sang those roles too. But the man, I tell you, with the German, the start of German, it's like, oh my God, and you have a whole to go. So after 3 production, I said, thank you very much, but no, I don't need that anymore.
You have been singing in Europe, in South America, in the United States, and everywhere. What are the differences between those places in the world to sing a production, for example?
Well, I would say, and we lived that in Stuttgart too, didn't we? The production itself differs a lot. For example, if I compare Europe and the type of productions they do there and what they do in the States, it's very, very often very classical interpretations. Nobody is getting hurt. The Figaro production looks like a Figaro production 120 years ago. And in Germany, very often you have these very, very modern interpretations. Now, I'm not the guy that says every modern interpretation is bad, because it's not. There are some really, really very good ones. And I understand the intention of the directors to try something new, that you cannot go on doing exactly the same for the next 200 years, right? I understand that. And I was thinking about that. And if you remember our Pic Dame, it was a modern production, but it was really, really well done. It looked beautifully, and it told the story. And with that, I take on every modern production possible. If it tells the story, it looks good, and that's what I like. If it just wants to provoke, I don't like it. No? And there's very often the argument that you have to do it more modern, also for the younger people. And I always say, if you take a young man or woman the first time to the opera house, and they see something, they are like prepared for Aida, and they see something that has nothing to do with it, absolutely nothing. Chances that they come back, I don't see them very high. I think they probably think like, no, I don't understand that, and no, I'm never going back, no? And on the other hand, without any question, if I may mention that, I did an Aida in Seattle. At that time, I was not singing Amonasro, I was still singing Ramphis. And they bought the scenery and all the costumes, not bought, they lend. Yeah, they lend all this from the Met. And that was the first time after, 10, 12 years of singing just in Germany, even doing a production of Aida before. There was the first time that in the costume fitting, I was getting emotional. They were putting me the things and the costume and everything. And the first time I really felt like Ramphis, like the high priest. So I absolutely enjoyed that with the traditional costumes. And something happened that never happened somewhere else in my career. When they opened the curtain for the big triumphal march, no? They opened the curtain and the people were clapping because they loved it so much what they said, what they saw. So singers went home happily. The audience went home happily. The people, the leading of the house went home. So everybody was happy. So what's wrong with that?
Yeah. What's wrong with being happy? All right. Yeah. 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 Do you sing? Do you change your technique?
No. it actually when I was still singing, the Basilio is a bass role that I sang already after the transition. And yes, because of the tessitura where it lays, it sounds darker, let's say. But what I had to learn with this transition, and that is my shout out to a lot of young singers with a dark voice. Don't darken the voice. You have the voice that you have, sing with it. And that was also an experience that I had, if I may say, at the Met with the coachings. As soon as you would darken a note, they would stop you and don't do that because they won't hear you. And I was like, okay. And so when I was singing bass repertoire, of course, you have all these recordings and you try to sound dark, right? Or let's say there's the temptation to do so. No? And you won't survive the Peter and Hansel and Gretel if you try go bass and go. You just don't get to the high notes.
No.
So the La Calumnia, let's say that you heard there from Barber, put it 10 years back, I probably would have started La Calumnia, and there I start La Calumnia because that is carrying. No, so I think that was also a process. You know that when you heard as a young singer, you heard recordings of Kipnis or of Diaurov or no, you always thought like, oh my God, they sound so dark. What do I do? No, and the temptation is big to try to imitate it. Or if you hear colleagues on stage, in Stuttgart, like with mature voices, 50 years old or something, and you as a young singer, you are listening to them, you think like, oh my God, how can I match them? No? And yeah, that would be something. Dark voices out there, young dark voices, don't darken the voice because you just cut off higher, what is that, like resonances?
Yes, and the formant, the formants. So what do you say? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You will be heard less, not more. It was a blessing when I was young that I just had one, thankfully, a good teacher. But now at that point of our careers, it's interesting to listen to interpretation opinions about singing. No? And the truth is that from every serious teacher, you can take something. But now we can, let's say, as experienced singers, we can digest it. You know,
Yeah.
you can say, you know what he's saying in this point, that won't help me that much because I need something else. But what he said there, that could be actually very helpful. So I think that's also
Yeah. To take things from different places and put it together in your own. You're right.
For example, I saw with I forgot his name, and I'm not faking it now. I really forgot his name. A pretty, I think, an English-based baritone it was. Just by coincidence, I saw something on YouTube, and he was working with his teacher, and they were like just singing. That's a very easy one, no? And they just started very low, and then they went up a little bit, like half note, and we're talking about that the singer feels when you mix more chest voice, more middle voice, more head voice. Super interesting. And then I did it for myself. I was like, I have to figure that out. Huh? And I went up, and I was so concentrated because you will agree that these top notes and everything is just a little change that your adjustment, I would say. No, it's not a big deal. You don't have to go, that will kill you. No, it's like a little thing, which for example, the master of all masters is Pavarotti. He knew exactly how to do it, and you see him like, and he does that, boom, it is there. And I was trying that, I was playing with that, and suddenly I just forgot where I am in my voice. No, and I was like, oh, you sing just like da da dee da dee da da. I went up to a G easy, and I was like, look at that. So some things that we can still learn. That's what I want to say. In Hamburg, I found out that like the life as a fixed contracted singer is not my way to live this profession. I just found out that all these power struggles within a house, and that even around 40 you have to discuss, well, I should sing this role, I should sing this role and stuff. It might sound funny, but I just got too old for it. So I decided, you know what, I can rather live with as a freelancer. I go to audition, they like me, they give me a contract, or they don't like me, end of story. There is no power struggle and one person wants you in, the other person doesn't want you. You get a contract or you don't. And I admire people, especially in these times. It's fantastic because they are still getting paid, and I, as a freelancer right now, I'm not getting paid anything apart from my teaching. But this was, at a certain point, it was very good for the first 10-12 years, because it's also not, you cannot go out and say I'm a freelancer and what repertoire do you have? Nothing. Nobody is going to engage you. So it was very important to learn that, to go through that, to do a lot of roles, small, bigger, doesn't matter, and to know how a theater works. But at a certain point, I decided I cannot go on like that. I have to be my own boss, let's say. And yeah, there's this, again, I admire being 20. That was the way it was in the older times. You know, young basses would be hired in Hamburg. They sing 5-6 years smaller roles, then they grow into, in their peak, they grow into the big roles, and then when they get older, they go back to the smaller roles. No, and that's beautiful, but it almost doesn't exist anymore.
Tell me about your thoughts when it comes to career and family life.
that's a big task for all of us, for all singers, to find your own way to combine the profession that we have, that we love, and our lives. For example, I'm thinking about that. I think it was 2016. Professionally, a fantastic year with a lot of work. And I think I was gone from these 12 months of the year, I was gone 8 months. And I decided, no, it's not possible. I cannot do that. I miss my family. And there was one day, at a certain point, I flew them in, and Gabi and the kids were coming, and we had some time together. And when I brought them back to the airport, I still had 6 weeks to go or something where I was singing. No? And my little girl at that time might have been 8 or something. She broke into tears, and she could not understand that after already have been away for 6 months, I still had to go on 6 more weeks. And I tell you, again, want to, at a certain point, to jump to these absolutely upper 2%, you have to dedicate your whole life to singing and to all this that is involved in that. No? Also marketing, a big part, and all this. And I decided that's not for me. That's not for me, because at the end of the day, a colleague told me that, I think still in the Times, I think it was Matthias Höller or something, in Stuttgart, he said, you know what, it is fantastic. I'm very thankful for my career, but it happened to me that in a very big house, in one of my dream roles, we had a premiere. I was so happy, and everything went super well. We went to the party afterwards super well, and then I went to my hotel room, and I was so alone. And he was absolutely right. That's also what I felt. And if you, with the due respect, I'm not judging, but with the due respect, a lot of the absolutely superstars that I had the chance to work with are pretty lonely human beings. You have to have something else in life.
Yes, you're right.
If you get all your self-esteem just from success as a singer, you are doomed to fail. You will never be happy. No, and so to find the right balance is a big task that we have as singers, and it's not easy. What can I say? It's a fantastic job. I would never prefer being to work as an economist than as a singer. It was fantastic. So many beautiful things happened, but it's tough. You have to find your way.
What are the major differences between working in Europe and the rest of the world?
So, talking about atmospheres in productions, it is always the same, everywhere the same. You have to audition and you get the contract, or not. That's how singer's life is as a freelancer. But I have to say, once you get hired, I really enjoyed so much working in Mexico, because it's like, it's such an atmosphere that everybody involved in the production wants the production and the fellow singer to succeed. This is really impressive, I have to say. A lot of things are not as organized as in the States or in Germany. I remember my first rehearsal that I was scheduled. I was there at 2:00, nobody there. 2:15, I started thinking probably I'm in the wrong place. They are rehearsing somebody. So at 2:30, the first came and were like preparing the assistants, no? And that's sometimes a little bit nerve-wracking. But apart from that, it's really such a nice atmosphere of, we want to present a great show, a great opera night. And this atmosphere, I was lacking sometimes in Germany. No? And not always, but there were some places where it was like dangerous to get in between two people that were fighting for power. and it can happen all over the world. But I had the feeling that it happened more in Germany than in the States or in Mexico. No? For example, the States, it's very often the case. You have a production. For example, I did Figaro in Charlotte. No? Huge theater, like all the theaters in America are huge. They all have like 3,000 seats or 2,500. It's big, no? And the super nice guy who did the staging there, but he was the assistant of the original director somewhere else. So that happens a lot in the States, that they buy productions. But on the good side of it, that takes a lot of pressure out of the fight between singer and director, that you say, no, I cannot do that, you know. It's so it's like levels down, and also like that you get from the very first day a very, very fresh and relaxed atmosphere. No, and yeah, that's what I also thought about difference between Europe and the rest of the world. I remember, for example, we did this Barbiere that you were like also putting in a recording. Javier Camarena, who is right now the big superstar of tenors, of high tenors, was there. I cannot tell you something. It's like if you work in Mexico, probably because they are Latinos, it's so relaxed, no, and that helps the atmosphere, no. And sometimes you are in other productions and you're double cast, for example, no. And what I do from the very first day, after the very first rehearsal, I directly tell my colleague, you sound wonderful. And just with this comment, everything slows down a little bit and everybody relaxes, because that's not the point of it. You are there, they hired you both, you are going to sing your shows, just enjoy. Yeah. And again, I say in Germany that's sometimes tougher than in other places. Also in Stuttgart, my God, after the general rehearsal, you have discussions until 2 in the night. Yeah, everybody's like, no. That doesn't happen in the States because of the union. Whatever the stage director wants to say, if it is 10 o'clock in the night, nobody stays. Nobody, also not the soloists. Nobody. And well, I would say in Mexico, it's like if the director sees we all get tired, they're like, okay, let's go to the tacos.
Yeah. How opera will be in the future, how it will change, if it's going to be the same, or is the...
I think now that we have all these online productions, I think that's not the future. I think we do it right now because if not, nothing would happen, right? And I think we will go back to the theaters and we will have these discussions of should it be a modern production or should it not be a modern production. I think the marketing could get better, marketing and trying to perhaps school classes to get them even more into theaters, that they just, it's the whole package, right?
Yeah. Carsten, we have to stop.
Oh my God!
Thank you very much for talking with me. It was nice.
It was wonderful. And yeah, after all this time to sit together with you and take some time to talk. Let's do it again. We don't always have to take a video, but it's great to see you and to talk. And I love it.
Yeah. Bye.